Hey everyone, this is the Tell the Truth Radio Sports Show. I'm your host, Ron Fitch, and today we're going to talk about the Spence Garcia fight. A couple of comings and goings in the NFL, big matchup, Tennessee versus Cleveland, and a little bit of college football news. But first, I want to talk about the Spence Garcia fight. In a minute, I'm going to have boxing scenes. Keith Idec, he also works at CBS Sports. He is one of the best. I've known him for 20 years. He's one of the best at breaking down a boxing match, and he did a terrific job, and I'm going to show you the interview. But I want to break this fight down. Errol Spence, the best welterweight in the world, is coming off a car accident. Everybody knows that. I saw the scar tissue, and he recovered. He was blessed to recover amazing. He's in terrific shape. Going up, he could have got a tune-up. I would have done a tune-up, but he went against one of the best welterweights in the world, who barely, by 2 or 3 punches. I was in Brooklyn when I saw it. Barely lost to Keith Thurman, barely. And you could even say it was a draw. And in that fight, Keith Thurman caught him. He was trying to finish him in the first round. And Danny Garcia was in real trouble. Danny Garcia was slick enough and smart enough with his Philadelphia smarts to navigate out of that problem, and was able to really, at times, give Thurman a boxing lesson. And Thurman was still the aggressor, but Garcia was really technically sound. And that's what I love about Garcia. Garcia's got short arms, but he makes up with an amazingly timed left hook. He's one of the best counterpunchers in the entire sport. He's going to need that going up against Spence. Spence likes to overwhelm you because he's a big welterweight. He likes to pop you in the body with a hard jab, hard right jab to the head. But he's really good at the jab to the body, because what that does, that pushes you back, and that allows him to use his distance to come into the body. And he's got a nasty right cross that can get you out. He's a clubber. He reminds me of Marvin Hagler. I talked to Derek James, the trainer. He said, no, he's a better boxer. I think so, but he reminds me of Hagler from this standpoint. He pounds you and pounds you and pounds you and pounds you, and eventually you're going to wilt up. Sean Porter had a chin of iron, so let's discount him. But he just wears you out totally. You're done after near the end of the fight. That's going to be interesting with Garcia, because Garcia loves guys that come in like that, where he could throw that well-timed hook or that well-timed right cross. Look at Morales and look at Amir Khan. Now, he hit those guys and they spun around. That's how hard he was able to counter. He's a hard counter puncher. So and Garcia, because of now he lost to Sean Porter. It was a close fight, but Sean Porter was more aggressive. So in Garcia's mind, he's thinking, from now on, I'm going for a knockout. And I watched him. He changed his style. He's really going after a knockout. Spence is a predator. Spence wants to put on a show. Spence might box for 12 rounds. But Spence might try to get him out. Both these fighters might look to finish each other. That's going to be a great, and they both got great chins. This is going to be a great fight. I can't wait. I've been looking forward to a really good fight all year. I haven't got one like this potential one, except the last one was Porter Spence. This is going to be good because Garcia's not going to go anywhere. Spence is going to pound him. And Spence is going to look for the knockout. Garcia's not going to go anywhere. The one edge I got with Spence is he's a bigger welterweight. He knows how to use his size. And I think eventually he'll be able to win. I think decision is hard to get Garcia out. It would not surprise me if Garcia won. And I used to think, I see his father, I said, this guy's a moron. I listened to him talk, I said, this guy's a moron, but I sat and watched Garcia's story, and how his father was in jail. He didn't want his kids to see him. He was determined to get out, to live his life when he got out, to never go back to crime again. I respect that. And I saw how Garcia cried when he saw his dad finally come out of jail, and his dad's coming home. He sees him out the window. Oh my goodness, that was an awesome story that they aired on PBC. But I'm not crazy about some of the off the wall trash talk, but I respect him now that I understand his story and how he came about and how much he loves his sons. So I do respect that. Okay. All right. I am pleased to have CBS Sports, Keith Idec. What else do you do? What is your resume? Because I remember you from the Burger Record. You just keep moving up and up and up. I'm waiting to see you on ESPN. That's what I'm waiting to see, or just replacing Max Kellerman. That's what I really want to see.
Nah, no aspirations to replace Max, but I appreciate the kind words, Ron. Yeah, I work for BoxingScene.com. I'm the senior writer and columnist for BoxingScene.com, which is owned by Viacom CBS. And
okay.
Yeah, so, yep, I worked for the paper for a very long time until 2016, and now cover boxing exclusively for the website. Yep.
I still have the video of us doing a show in 2000 in a jazz club talking about Trinidad and Hopkins.
I had a full head of hair and a whole
yes
back then, you know.
Yes, me too. I found the archive. It was who's going to win, Trinidad or Hopkins? Wow.
Tell me I picked Hopkins.
You did. I picked Trinidad. You picked Hopkins.
That was a beatdown. Jeez.
Yes. And you know what? Before we get to that fight, that was the loud, because that was after 9/11. That was the loudest I've ever heard Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, man. Remember the fight started really, really late? Like
yes.
12:30, 12:45.
Yes. Oh, we lost connection. Oh, man. All right, let's see if you can get it back. Okay, you got it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And there was so much energy in the building because they had to come in and everything. It was really such an emotional night and obviously an unforgettable fight. You know, Bernard Hopkins, I mean, oof.
Yeah.
He laid it on Tito Trinidad that night, that's for sure.
He did. Now we got the fight. This is an event I've been looking forward to because of 2020 has been a mess and different sporting events have been canceled. This is an event I've really been looking forward to. Spence versus Garcia. What do you like about Spence first?
Well, you know, tomorrow night, obviously, Ron, is all about finding out where Errol Spence is at this point because of the car accident last year. He has not fought since then, so we don't know what's left of Errol Spence. Now, he assures us that he's the same tremendous, fierce fighter that he was before. And of course, he's going to tell us that. He's not going to tell us if there were any problems in camp or anything like that. I have no reason not to believe him, but seeing is believing. You know, you want to see it with your own two eyes, particularly against a really good fighter like Danny Garcia. I mean, this is not an easy fight, even before the car accident, and certainly not after. So he's got a real fight on his hands tomorrow night, and I think we're going to learn, you know, if Errol Spence has regained that form pre-accident.
Now, Garcia, you break down Garcia.
You know, Danny Garcia is an underrated fighter. He's got a resume. As you know, Ron, he's got some big wins on his resume. When he beat Lucas Matisse on the Floyd Mayweather-Canelo Alvarez undercard, think about how many people 7 years ago thought that he was going to get knocked out in that fight. And he beat Lucas Matisse, and he took his best shots, and he outpointed him, and he was rough and physical with a guy who was supposed to overpower him. That changed Danny Garcia's career, and obviously he's had some very good wins since then. He gets criticized a little bit for being, you know, people call him a cherry picker, and he's gotten some soft touches, you know, from Al Heyman, good paydays for relatively easy fights. But he's also fought everyone now that he's fighting. Yep. I mean, other than Terrence Crawford, he will have fought every welterweight of this era. And he has 2 losses on his record to, you know, a very close split decision loss to Keith Thurman in a fight that could have gone either way. You know, the Sean Porter fight, I thought that Sean Porter won that fight and deserved a unanimous decision win over Danny at that point. But Danny can punch. Mm-hmm. he can, his knockout ratio doesn't really reflect how big of a puncher he is with his left hook and his right hand. And he's got amazing timing. Sean Porter was telling me the other day, and Sean fought him 12 hard rounds against Danny. He said the thing you can't prepare for is his timing.
Yes.
He figures out how to time an opponent's rhythm and counter him off of that. And if Errol Spence stands and trades with Danny Garcia tomorrow night, as opposed to using his height and his length and his boxing ability to make it an easier fight, if he stands there and tries to bang it out with Danny Garcia, he's going to give Garcia opportunities to counter him, and then the fight could be very different than a lot of people.
Yeah, and you're a boxing expert. I have the utmost respect for you. This is a question I've thought about all day to ask you. Danny Garcia reminds me of a fighter. Now, Danny Garcia is a smarter version, a little more fundamentally sound version of this fighter. Both Puerto Rican. They both were very good counterpunchers. They both have short arms. He reminds me of Edwin Rosario a little bit.
Yeah, he does. You're going way back in the archive. He does. The thing I'll say about Danny is I don't think he gets enough credit. I really don't, because those two, look, there are a lot of people who think he lost to Mauricio Herrera. So, and that was a close fight that could have gone either way. Mm-hmm. That was a blemish on his record that wouldn't look good. But I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves. I think, to have just those two close losses on his record to elite level fighters like Keith Thurman and Sean Porter, that speaks to how good he actually is. And another thing that Sean said to me was that he's a guy, when you're watching him, nothing jumps out about him. You don't say, wow, he's got such great footwork or such fast hands or he's a murderous puncher, but he does everything well. And Sean said that when you're on the outside looking in against Danny Garcia, he said, trust me, it is a lot more difficult when you're in there and he's standing across from you.
Yes.
That Errol Spence is going to find that out to some degree tomorrow night. And I don't think Errol has underestimated him in any way. I think he realizes how good Danny Garcia is, and that's why he picked him for this fight. He could have, coming off that horrific car accident, Ron, he could have fought anybody at the back end of the top 15 and made an optional title defense of his IBF or WBC title, and no one could have complained. I mean, you have to see where you're at. I mean, after something like that, how do you take a punch under the bright lights when you're wearing 8-ounce gloves and you're not wearing headgear and you're really getting hit for the first time under those circumstances since the accident? There's a lot to find out tomorrow night. And Errol Spence said, look, I don't want a tune-up. I don't want an optional title defense against someone no one's ever heard of. Bring me Danny Garcia, just like I was supposed to fight when the accident happened next. Bring it on. And he deserves a lot of credit for that, I think.
You know what advantage that Spence has? I think he could use – this is what I love about Spence. He's very good at using he's a big welterweight, so he's very good at that jab to the body, and he's very good at controlling the distance, then coming in with his hard shot. And his right cross is underrated because I saw him put a lot of guys on the canvas. Now, he's a left-hander, southpaw, but his right cross is lethal.
It is. Ron, I'll say one thing, though. When he goes to the body, when he's really digging to the body, he tends to lean in a little bit. Like
yes.
He's in, and he exposes himself to get countered. Now, if he makes that mistake against Danny Garcia, he could wind up paying for it because, again, he's a guy who wants to – in his heart, he's a fighter. He's from Texas. I mean, he wants to bang it out with you. He's got dog in him, and I mean that in the most complimentary way.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to fight, and he doesn't – he's not going to be satisfied going in there tomorrow night, even though he knows it's the right thing and the smart thing to do. He's not going to be satisfied going into that ring and outboxing Danny Garcia for 12 rounds and making it seem like he didn't want to engage with him. There are going to be times when he's going to stand and trade with Danny Garcia, and that's what Garcia needs to have a chance to win this fight because he's probably not outpointing Errol Spence. That's his least likely path to victory, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
He needs him to stand there and give him opportunities to counter him. And I think Spence will do that at times, and that's when we're going to have some really interesting moments in the fight.
You know why I think it's going to be real interesting moments? Danny Garcia, ever since he lost the decision to Thurman and Porter, he has the mindset of, I don't really want this to go to the scorecard. Let me try to put him on the canvas and get him out. And you know that Errol Spences is a predator. So that's what's going to make for a great fight. Neither of these guys really want to go to the scorecards.
And they both have great chins. That's
yeah.
really fascinating about this because they both can punch. They both have, I mean, you know, it did seem to me like Danny got buzzed, and he did. And in the first round of the fight against Keith Thurman, a combination, I think it was a left hook that he followed up with a right hand. And Danny was holding. I mean, I think he was buzzed a little bit at that point. But throughout his career, I mean, he's fought some big punchers and has never really been any worse for wear from it. So he's got a great chin. Errol has always shown a great chin. Sean Porter, again, told me he didn't think he really hurt either guy. I mean, he said he thought he hit Danny with a body shot, maybe that
I saw that. I watched it today. Yes.
But beyond that, up top, he didn't hurt him, and he didn't think that he really hurt Errol either. So both guys with well above average power, granite chins, a lot to prove. Because, you know, Ron, people are saying that, you know, there's clearly a lot to prove for Errol Spence tomorrow night, that he's the same that he was before the accident. But this is a moment of truth, so to speak, for Danny Garcia also, because this would be, look, people will always look back on the Matisse win as a career-changing win for him. It was a fight that people thought he was going to get knocked out in, and it changed the course of his career, no doubt about that. But if he beats Errol Spence, there obviously will be people who say, oh, he wasn't the same after the accident. That's the only reason Danny won. Not fair, but that's reality. That's what will happen if he wins the fight. But it would be the biggest win of his career.
Yeah. But you know what? I want to see if I could delve into the mind of Keith Idec. For the first couple rounds, aren't you going to be wondering if Errol Spence gets cut from the accident, does the cut get worse because of the scar tissue? Aren't you thinking about that?
You know, I looked at I was face-to-face with him. Now, obviously, we're wearing masks and everything down here. But I've been face-to-face with him several times over the last couple of days. You know, we all eat in the same – they have this bubble environment down here where we all kind of eat in the same places and everything. So I've seen Errol in the dining room, in the elevator a couple – you know, so I've seen him face-to-face like a few times this week. And I was kind of looking at his face, and I was like, his face actually looks pretty good based on the photos that I saw from right after the accident. It didn't look to me like there was a lot of scar tissue there. And he had some plastic surgery, I guess, to tighten some of that up. But it doesn't look like there's anything there that would be susceptible to cuts. What I'm more interested in, Ron, and you make a good point. I mean, because his skin was pretty ripped up there. There's several cuts on his face and everything. So that's a possibility, I guess. But what I'm more interested in the first couple of rounds of the fight is when Danny catches him with a clean shot. Clean shot. How does he react? Because there's a distinct difference between when you're sparring with heavier, you know, with 16-ounce gloves or whatever, and headgear, and you're fighting a much lesser fighter than Danny Garcia. That's very different than getting clipped in a real fight in a stadium setting. You know, I think there will be about 20,000 people in the tomorrow because you know they have limited capacity with COVID-19 and everything. But the bright lights will be on, and you know, 8-ounce gloves, no headgear. How does he react when he gets clipped with that first shot? And I think even in his own mind, even though he's not going to say that, he's waiting for that too. He wants to see how he reacts physically to that as well.
Finally, who do you think is going to win this fight?
I think Errol Spence is going to win a 12-round unanimous decision in a competitive fight. I don't think it'll be something where necessarily you might think it would go either way. But I think he'll win a unanimous decision because I do think, while what I alluded to before, he will fight at times. I think mostly he's going to approach this fight the way he approached the Mikey Garcia fight, in a smart way, in a more tactical way. That's the easiest way that he can win the fight. And in this one, I think he knows like he needs to win just to get past that, not only the physical hurdle, but the mental hurdle of what awaits him tomorrow night.
Thanks a lot, man. You're the best.
All
right. The NFL report. I'll tell you, 1 o'clock, I'm looking forward to this game. The 8-3 Titans versus the 8-3 Browns. The Browns, I put them on my B- list. This will elevate them to B+, consideration of A- if they can win this, because I need to see them win against a team that's competitive. They've lost 3 games to teams that are really good. They were destroyed by the Baltimore and Pittsburgh. But this opportunity, and let me tell you something. Tennessee last year, you want to talk about the revenge factor? Tennessee beat them 43-13. They didn't just beat the Browns. They beat them up, and they laughed at them, and they mocked them, and I never seen. Usually, you win like that. You enjoy the win. You get off the field, and you go. They mocked the Browns. They enjoyed the heck out of that win. And the Browns saw that footage. They're going to be very motivated to go back to Tennessee to return the favor. Can they? Well, here's how they could. Chubb has to go off. Chubb has to be Chubb. It's not going to be easy because the Titans' weakness is their passing defense. They're 29th in sacks. Now, Cleveland's 11th in sacks. They're pretty good with that. But as far as the Browns is concerned, Baker Mayfield has to go above the 190 average, which is average. It's not terrible, not good in this league right now. He's got to be able to make throws. And this is the one thing that if they had Odell Beckham to go along with Landry and they're a good tight end, and then you screen the ball to Chubb. Chubb is good with the screen pass and Kareem Hunt. You got enough to beat the Titans. They could beat the Titans because there's a revenge factor. It's going to be a close game. They're going to come out very angry, looking for some respect because Tennessee totally disrespected the Browns. But it's going to be difficult if Mayfield can't elevate his game. Mayfield's been average. He's an average quarterback. He's got to have a good game. He's got to be an average quarterback that has a good game. That's all. Everybody talks about, okay, he's this, he's that, he's doing better. He's an average quarterback. He misses throws he should. He's pretty good on the run, but in the pocket, he's not so great. And they said, well, they hate on him because of personality or the commercials. It's just too many commercials, but that's his preference. Has nothing to do with this conversation. He's a moron. But that if you were throwing for 300-400 yards, I'm still going to give you credit. Because they said, because his behavior. No, that doesn't help. But it's just that he's an average quarterback. That's the bottom line. If my shows tell the truth sports radio, I got to say that. Now, if he elevates to become better and they get better, I'm going to say so. Just because I particularly do not like the guy, I'm not going to take credit from him. He has played pretty good the last 3 games against teams that are a mess. The Eagles are a mess. But he's going to have – now, they're going to double Landry. I think Vrabel's going to make sure that Chubb and Landry don't hurt him. So the other guy's going to have opportunities. The screen pass to Kareem Hunt, the tight end. But if Odell Beckham was playing, that would have been that extra guy that could have brought them over the top. As far as Tennessee's concerned, Tannehill is better. Both teams are going to run. You got the number 1 Cleveland, number 2 rush team in the entire sport, entire NFL. Derrick Henry and Cook from Minnesota are 2 of the best running backs, and then Chubb. That's the gold standard of running backs right there. And Kamara. Those are the 4 best running backs on the planet. And I already talked about how good Derrick Henry is and how good what he does well in my last show. So Cleveland's going to be loaded up. Cleveland does have a good pass rush, which helps, but they're going to have 8-9 men in the box. And you could do that with the Browns, and it gets away with it. The only problem is A.J. Brown and Davis. You got Brown and Davis, the bookends. When you got 2 receivers that are go-to guys, that's the key. That's why they're averaging 29 points a game. That's why they're so difficult to stop, because Tannehill's more accurate than he's been good. Baker Mayfield's been average. Tannehill's been good. And that's why I'm picking the Titans in a very close game. I trust Tannehill more than I trust Baker Mayfield. All right. I think the Falcons are going to give the Saints some trouble. This is going to be Taysom Hill's toughest game. I think the Falcons have found themselves. And they could be a spoiler. And that probably not going to make the playoffs. They could be a spoiler the rest of the year. It's going to be a tricky game for the Saints. I'm not saying they're going to lose, but there could be I wouldn't be surprised. The next game that I'm really got my eyes on is the Cardinals or Rams. Packers are going to beat the Eagles. Eagles are a mess. The Cardinals or Rams. The Rams could follow what Belichick did. Belichick kept Kyler Murray. He rushed 4, but it was a disciplined rush. It was a rush to protect your lanes. You didn't run past Murray, but it was one of those where you made sure he didn't leave the line of scrimmage running. So you took the run away from Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray could throw. Lamar Jackson take the run away, he's in trouble. Kyler Murray, he's in trouble too. Kyler Murray's a little better thrower of the ball than Lamar Jackson, but when Kyler Murray doesn't rush for over 30 yards, he has only one win his entire career. And the Rams know that, and that's why the Rams are going to win. Even though I do not trust Goff, I do not trust the Rams. I don't think the Rams are going to win the division. They're going to win this. I don't know. I think in midstream during the middle of my show, which I've never done, I think the Cardinals might win. I've never changed my mind during the show. I don't trust these teams. Cardinals are still developing. They're going to get better each year if Kyler Murray keeps getting better. They're trending up. The Rams are a playoff team. Cardinals going to win in a close game. The Rams are going to do what they have to do. This is going to be – they're going to stop Murray from running, but this is going to be a second win where he doesn't rush for over 30 yards. They'll find a way to win at home. Seattle's going to win that division. Seattle's found themselves. They're a little better on defense now with Adams healthy. I think Rams are going to be the highest seed, and I can see them losing to Washington or Giants in the first round. I mean, I don't trust the Cowboys anymore. Forget the Eagles. Completely forget it. They won't win a game this year. The Cowboys, I mean, they could conceivably still win the division. They have games that are winnable on their schedule. I just pick Dallas all the time, and I look like a complete idiot. I'm not doing it anymore. So there you have it. That's the NFL report. All right, this is a college football report. You know, this has been a top-heavy year as far as college football. You know, the Bama's, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Texas A&M, and Florida. They're going to beat the brakes off the teams are going to play. Now, I don't think LSU is going to be competitive with Alabama. Normally, LSU could be. Alabama, like I said, Alabama's been ruthless this year. If Alabama is their selves and they're your usual selves and Mac Jones is on fire with all those receivers and how they run the ball, no. You know, Harris running the ball and Smith, the way he catches, we got first rounders all over the place. I got Bama in that one easy. Ohio State's going to beat the brakes off Michigan State. You know why? Here's why. Michigan State just beat Northwestern. Now they got to turn back around emotionally and try to play Ohio State. Nah. Feels will light them up today in Michigan State. I think the game of the day is at noon. Auburn, Alabama. I mean, Auburn, Texas A&M. I'm thinking about last week. Auburn, A&M. A&M, say, for instance, Auburn gives them trouble. Will the committee frown on that? I think it's going to be a good game. Nix is going to battle. Mond is going to battle. Isaiah Spiller could be the difference. I think he's going to be able to run pretty good. But Auburn's home. This is their last big game they could show that the season wasn't a complete wash. They have 3 losses already. They don't want a 4th one. Gus Malzahn doesn't want that, so they're going to battle. I think it's going to be a close game. A&M wins. I trust A&M a little more. And then you have some duds. And yeah, Wisconsin's a good game. You know it's a good game. BYU and Coastal Carolina at 5 o'clock, 5:30. They're both undefeated. They're just looking for respect. And I got to take a peek at that game. ESPNU, I'm going to be all over that game. I'm looking forward to that. And there you have your college landscape. Before I go, Texas A&M, and I always talk about them, their path is Notre Dame to get blown out. But what if Notre Dame loses by 14, 17 points? Is that enough? Or Notre Dame to win outright? And then Clemson's out, and they'll get in. But if Notre Dame gets blown out, Notre Dame is out, and they're in. Because they played a 10-game schedule. Ohio State's going to figure out a way to play enough games to get in. And then they'll beat up whoever they play in their playoffs. They'll be in. I think Alabama, they're got a war against Florida coming up. If they take care of business and they play Florida, that is very tricky. Florida wins. If you're Texas A&M, you're feeling a certain way because Alabama's going to get in, and Clemson's going to get in. Ohio State's going to get in. You get left out. And you're like, wow, we got one loss, and Florida beat Alabama, and we beat Florida, punched Florida in the face, and we're sitting on the outside. This is just crazy. But I do believe Alabama's going to run the table. And the Clemson-Notre Dame game is going to decide Texas A&M fate.